You know that friend who never breaks? The one who's always calm, collected, and looks like they've got life figured out. Yeah, that's Maurice Sam for you. The man who walks into a room with that quiet confidence, the type of guy who makes unbothered look like an art form. So when word got out that Maurice Sam was spotted crying, actual tears streaming down his face, because of Sonia Uche, the entire Nollywood community and their fans collectively gasped. Wait, what? Maurice crying? The same Maurice who plays the smooth-talking lover boy in movies, the one who delivers heartbreak on screen but never seems affected by it in real life. Something major must have gone down, and naturally, everyone wanted to know, what on earth did Sonia Uche do to this man? The scene itself was almost unbelievable. Picture Maurice, usually the picture of composure, suddenly breaking down like someone just told him his favorite jollof rice restaurant shut down permanently. His eyes were red, his face was wet, and anyone who saw him knew these weren't the fake tears actors conjure up for the camera. These were real, raw, and caught everyone off guard. And right there in the middle of it all was Sonia Uche, looking equally shocked or perhaps quietly guilty, depending on who you ask. The whispers started immediately. What happened between these two? Did she say something? Do something? Was this a scene gone wrong or real-life drama that just happened to unfold in front of witnesses? Nobody had concrete answers, but that didn't stop the theories from flying faster than Lagos traffic on a Monday morning. Now, let's talk about the first theory that had people talking, the dreaded friend zone speech. You know the one. It starts with, "You're such an amazing person," and ends with, "But I see you more like a brother." That line has ended more hopes and dreams than cancelled flights during Harmattan season. Could Sonia have dropped that bomb on Maurice? Maybe he'd been quietly nursing feelings for her, building up the courage to finally express himself, only to get hit with the emotional equivalent of a cold bucket of water. That kind of rejection doesn't just sting, it cuts deep, especially when it comes from someone you genuinely care about. If Maurice had been carrying a torch for Sonia and she gently but firmly placed him in the brother category, those tears would make perfect sense. Nothing makes a grown man cry faster than realizing the woman he adores will never see him as anything more than a good friend. The heartbreak is real, and it's brutal. But hold on, there's another possibility that's equally compelling. What if this wasn't about romantic feelings at all? What if Sonia delivered such a powerful, emotionally charged performance on set that Maurice, as her scene partner, simply couldn't hold it together? Actors feed off each other's energy, and when someone like Sonia, who's known for her ability to make you feel every emotion, goes all in on a scene, it can break even the toughest co-stars. Maybe they were filming a particularly heavy scene, something involving loss, betrayal, or deep pain, and Sonia's performance was so authentic, so gut-wrenchingly real, that Maurice found himself genuinely moved to tears. It happens more often than you'd think in Nollywood. Sometimes the line between acting and reality blurs so much that the emotions become too real to fake, and before you know it, you're crying actual tears for a fictional situation that somehow feels incredibly personal. Then there's the deeply personal angle that has people wondering if Sonia opened up about her own struggles. Maybe behind the cameras, away from the lights and the glamour, Sonia shared something vulnerable with Maurice. Perhaps she told him about challenges she's been facing, battles nobody knows about, fears she's been carrying alone. When someone you respect and care about suddenly shows you their wounds, their humanity, their pain, it hits differently. Maurice might have been overwhelmed by her honesty, moved by her strength in sharing something so personal, and the tears just came. There's something profoundly touching about someone trusting you enough to be vulnerable, and for a man like Maurice who seems to care deeply about the people in his life, hearing Sonia's story might have broken through all his usual defenses and left him emotionally exposed. Or maybe, and this is where it gets interesting, these two had been carrying some unresolved issues between them. You know how it is, Sometimes friendships or working relationships develop tension over time. Maybe there was a misunderstanding that festered, words left unsaid, hurt feelings that built up like unpaid debt. And then, finally, they had that conversation. The one where everything comes out, where apologies are offered and accepted, where forgiveness flows and suddenly all that heavy weight just lifts. Relief can be just as emotional as pain, and if Maurice and Sonia finally buried whatever hatchet they'd been carrying, his tears might have been pure cathartic release. Sometimes you don't realize how much something was weighing on you until it's gone, and the emotional flood that follows can be overwhelming. Now let's consider a happier scenario, because not all tears come from pain. What if Sonia just achieved something absolutely massive? Maybe she landed that Hollywood role she's been auditioning for, or won a prestigious international award, or signed a deal that's going to change her entire career trajectory. And Maurice, being someone who's worked with her and knows her journey, was so genuinely happy for her success that he couldn't contain his emotions. Joy can make you cry just as much as sadness, especially when you're watching someone you care about finally get the recognition they deserve. If Maurice has been in Sonia's corner, cheering her on through the struggles and the setbacks, seeing her win big might have overwhelmed him with pride and happiness. Those would be beautiful tears, the kind that come from pure, unfiltered celebration of someone else's success. There's also the deeply personal trigger theory. Sometimes people or situations remind us of things we've buried deep inside. Maybe Sonia said something or did something completely innocent that happened to remind Maurice of someone significant from his past, a lost loved one, an old friend, a painful memory he thought he'd processed but clearly hadn't. It could have been a gesture, a phrase, a laugh, anything really. When those triggers hit unexpectedly, they can crack you wide open, and suddenly you're crying in public over something that seems to come out of nowhere but actually comes from somewhere very deep and very old. If Maurice was caught off guard by a memory or emotion he wasn't prepared to face, Sonia's inadvertent role in triggering it might explain why his tears seemed so intense and so sudden. Of course, we can't ignore the playful roasting theory that has Nollywood insiders chuckling. Sonia Uche has a reputation for being funny and not holding back when it comes to teasing her friends. Maybe she was joking around, throwing playful shade at Maurice the way good friends do, and everyone was laughing along. But then maybe one joke hit different. Perhaps she touched on something Maurice is actually sensitive about, something he laughs off publicly but secretly feels insecure about. And the combination of the joke itself, the public setting, and maybe his own emotional state at that moment just became too much. What started as playful banter suddenly felt a little too real, and before he could stop it, his emotions betrayed him. We've all been there, when a joke cuts deeper than intended and you're left trying to laugh it off while fighting back tears that threaten to expose how much it actually hurt. And speaking of playful interactions gone wrong, what about the prank theory? Nollywood sets are notorious for pranks and practical jokes, and if Sonia decided to mess with Maurice, she might have taken it too far. Imagine her switching his script pages right before a crucial scene, making him act out completely ridiculous lines while everyone else is in on the joke. Or maybe she convinced him of some terrible news that turned out to be completely fabricated. The initial shock and emotion could have brought tears before he realized he'd been pranked, and by then the waterworks had already started. Sometimes your body reacts before your brain catches up, and if Maurice fell hard for whatever trick Sonia pulled, his tears might have been equal parts embarrassment, relief, and frustration at being played so thoroughly. Then there's the hilariously petty but completely relatable, Maurice was just really hungry theory. Look, we've all been there. You're tired, you're hungry, your blood sugar is low, and your emotional regulation just goes out the window. Maybe Maurice hadn't eaten all day due to a packed filming schedule, and there was Sonia, enjoying her food like it was the best meal she'd ever had, completely unbothered by his suffering. And in that moment of exhaustion and hunger, watching her eat while his stomach growled, something in Maurice just broke. Don't laugh, Hunger can make you emotional in ways that are hard to explain to people who are well fed. Add in stress and fatigue, and you've got a recipe for tears over something as simple as someone else's lunch. But let's swing back to something more heartwarming, because maybe Sonia showed Maurice unexpected kindness at exactly the right moment. You know those times when someone does something so thoughtful, so perfectly timed, that it just melts you. Maybe Maurice was going through something difficult that nobody knew about, putting on a brave face day after day, and Sonia somehow sensed it. Maybe she said exactly what he needed to hear, or did something small but incredibly meaningful, and Maurice's carefully maintained composure just crumbled in the face of genuine compassion. Kindness can be disarming like that, especially when you're not expecting it, especially when you've been holding everything together for so long that one gentle gesture makes you fall apart. The shocking news theory has its supporters too. What if Sonia told Maurice something that genuinely stunned him? Maybe she announced she's leaving Nollywood to pursue opportunities abroad, or taking a long break from acting to focus on something else entirely. For someone who's worked closely with her, that kind of news could feel like a significant loss. The industry would feel different without her, their dynamic would change, and the realization that things are about to shift in a major way might have hit Maurice harder than he expected. Change, even good change, can be emotional, and if Maurice values his working relationship with Sonia, hearing that it might be ending or changing dramatically could certainly bring tears. Or maybe, and this might be the simplest explanation of all, Sonia is just genuinely hilarious. Maybe she told a joke so absurdly funny, so perfectly delivered, that Maurice literally laughed until he cried. Not emotional tears, not sad tears, just pure, I can't breathe, I'm laughing so hard, tears. The kind where your face hurts and your stomach aches and you can't stop even though you're desperately trying to compose yourself. If you've ever experienced that kind of laughter, you know it can look a lot like crying to people who can't hear what's so funny. Maybe witnesses just saw the tears and assumed something was wrong when really Maurice was having the best laugh of his life courtesy of Sonia's comedic timing. There's also the gratitude angle that shouldn't be overlooked. Sometimes in quiet moments, we overcome with appreciation for the people in our lives who've helped us along the way. Maybe Maurice had one of those moments of clarity where he suddenly realized how much Sonia has contributed to his journey, how much her friendship or mentorship or collaboration has meant to his career and personal growth. Maybe he was hit with a wave of gratitude so strong that it manifested as tears. We don't often see men expressing that kind of vulnerable appreciation, but when it happens, it's powerful and genuine and can catch everyone by surprise, including the person experiencing it. The family revelation theory is wilder but not impossible in the world of Nollywood, where connections run deep and surprising revelations happen. What if Sonia shared something about her family or background that connected to Maurice in an unexpected way? Maybe she discovered they have some distant relation, or their families share some significant history, or she revealed something about her own family story that resonated deeply with Maurice's experiences. Those kinds of revelations can be emotionally overwhelming, creating instant bonds or triggering complex feelings about identity, belonging, and connection that can absolutely bring tears. And then there's the absolutely mundane but entirely possible explanation that has some people laughing. Maybe Maurice just had something in his eye. Like, literally. A piece of dust, an eyelash, some irritation that made his eyes water, and Sonia just happened to be standing there when it happened. So now she's forever associated with that time Maurice cried, when really it was just an unfortunate coincidence of timing and proximity. Sometimes the simplest explanation is the right one, and maybe everyone's reading way too much into what was essentially a minor physical irritation that had nothing to do with emotions at all. Finally, there's the professional explanation that would make the most sense if anyone bothered to consider it. Maurice is an actor. Actors practice crying scenes. Maybe he was literally just rehearsing an emotional scene, really getting into character, preparing for an upcoming shoot, and Sonia was there watching or helping him practice. The tears were completely intentional and professional, but someone saw them out of context and suddenly it became this whole dramatic story about Maurice crying because of Sonia when really he was just doing his job. That would be the most anticlimactic but also most reasonable explanation for the whole situation. But here's what we know for sure, regardless of which theory is closest to the truth. Something happened between Maurice Sam and Sonia Uche that resulted in Maurice showing a vulnerability we're not used to seeing from him. Whether it was heartbreak or joy, laughter or pain, gratitude or surprise, professional or personal, Sonia was involved and Maurice's composure broke. And honestly, there's something humanizing and beautiful about seeing someone known for being cool and collected show real emotion. It reminds us that everyone has their breaking point, everyone has their vulnerable moments, and even the most unbothered person can be deeply affected by the right circumstances or the right person. So what really happened? We may never know the full truth. Maurice and Sonia might keep it private, or they might eventually share the story and we'll all find out it was something completely different from all our theories. But until then, we are left with this beautiful mystery of the day Nollywood's cool guy lost it, and Sonia Uche was somehow at the center of it all. What do you think happened? Drop your theories in the comments below because clearly we are all curious and nobody has the definitive answer. And while you're down there, hit that subscribe button because if you enjoyed unraveling this mystery with me, you're definitely going to want to stick around for more Nollywood stories, behind the scenes drama, and celebrity moments that keep us all talking.